Giants OTA day number 5 is in the books, and we're going to react to it on today's video as you're watching Giants Now by Chat Sports, and I am your host, Marshall Green. Deonte Banks had another big day at practice. A UDFA wide receiver is playing well and trying to find his way onto this roster, but the number one thing coming out of practice was veteran wide receiver Steve Smith was there, and he was mentoring Malik Nabers, Jalin Hyatt, and Wan'Dale Robinson. And I absolutely love this. One of the comparisons that I had to Malik Nabers coming through the draft process was a guy like Steve Smith. They both have that kind of mindset where I'm the big dog, this is my moment, and I'm going to go out and take it. Brian Daboll spoke about his relationship with Steve Smith and why he is bringing him to practice. He brought him to practice last year as well, but I like it even more now so that the Giants have a wide receiver one potentially in Malik Nabers. Dave said this on Steve Smith, quote, "We have a good relationship with him, Joe Shane and I. He's coming out, watching practice. I think he's a good sounding board for some of the young guys, particularly some of the young receivers. We have a good relationship with Steve. Joe, obviously at Carolina, and I've known him. I have a lot of respect for his game, how he's played. We had him last year, too." I absolutely love seeing Steve Smith at practice, and I've said this a lot of times on the channel. I love the fact that Brian Daboll is and we know Steve Smith is not a Giant. The real Steve Smith, please stand up. Maybe the most underrated play in New York Giants history. If you could tell me which one that was, you might get a cookie in the comment section. But I love seeing former players and former greats come back to the Giants, even though Smith, we know, was not a Giant. Getting just that veteran leadership, the guys that have been there and done that and done it at the highest level in this league, having them come out to the practice and mentor some young players is awesome. And I love that Malik Nabers is being able to do that. If you could think of a perfect way for a receiver to grow up and really learn the game, you want him doing it from maybe one of the best receivers ever in Steve Smith. But it's not just, I think, Malik Nabers that's benefiting from this. Guys like Wan'Dale Robinson, who is entering a big year 3 after being a second-round pick, and Jalin Hyatt entering a big year 2. You got young receivers throughout this depth chart that could use a little wisdom, could use a little bit of veteran seasoning on them, and I'm excited to see that Steve Smith is working with them, and working for the Giants. No official job there with him, but kind of just being a mentor and, like Brian Daboll, a soundboard for some of the young people. We have more quotes about Malik Nabers coming up, but I want to talk about these two guys because we spend a lot of time talking about Nabers. Number 1 pick, going to come in, hopefully give you a 1,000-yard receiving season and be a dog for the next 10, 12 years. But that wide receiver 2 spot for now and in the future is up for grabs, and I'm expecting big things out of these two guys. Second-round pick, third-round pick. Who's going to have more yards this year? Robinson, Hyatt? Let me know in the comment section. I really just can't wait to watch Malik Nabers play football. The Giants haven't had somebody like him on this team since Odell Beckham Jr., and I am very, very excited for preseason football. And I love the way that the Giants have talked about Nabers. They preach about his competitive spirit, his mindset, wanting to be one of one, trying to be that guy that knocks everybody off and letting you know about it. And I like what Brandon Brown, the assistant general manager, said today at practice about Malik Nabers. He said this: "He's got moxie. Dog. The cool kids call it aura. He wants to be at his best versus the best on the biggest platform, and he's going to let you know about it." Was he talking about Malik Nabers, or was we talking about Steve Smith right there? Those two guys are more similar than I initially thought when going through my draft process. We talked about he was that type of receiver, but I compared him more so to a guy like Antonio Brown with a little bit more juice after the catch. But Steve Smith Sr. might be the perfect comparison for Malik Nabers. And if that's the career he had, you're going to see a lot of Malik Nabers jerseys running around MetLife Stadium. Pat Leonard, as we transition now to just the overarching theme of Day 5 at OTAs, Pat Leonard for the New York Daily News said this: "Daniel Jones did a lot of work on the side today of Giants practice, planning on his right leg and rolling out hard to his left and throwing to Isaiah McKenzie. Brian Daboll acknowledged they've talked about Daniel Jones joining 11-on-11 drills in spring, possibly minicamp. Would not shock me. Jones at this point is only doing 7-on-7 work, has not been involved in 11-on-11s, and the Giants are doing a lot more 11-on-11 work this time of year compared to last year. And a reason for that, Daboll said, is we didn't have that many defensive linemen last year. This year they do. And he said, which I thought was interesting, he wants the quarterbacks to have a game-like feel where they got to feel the pocket, feel the rush, and feel the offensive lineman. probably because this team gave up 85 sacks last year. None of the QBs that played last year had that great pocket presence. Some injury news, unfortunately, for the Giants. Gunnar Olszewski got hurt. He ended up limping off the field, threw his gloves to the ground, looked to be in some serious pain. Can't tell if it was a foot or an ankle injury, but something to monitor going forward, as he is supposed to be the punt return specialist for this ball club this year. Eric Gray, another interesting note from practice today, got a lot of work with the first offense. And I think that's noteworthy because we really don't know who the RB2 is going to be for this team. We know Motor, Devin Singletary is going to be the lead back. And we've asked a couple times on this show, and I think this just goes to prove it. It's Eric Gray's job to lose as RB2. But he's got Jashaun Corbin, Tyrone Tracy, and Dante Miller right behind him, trying to take carries from him. It's going to be a battle all offseason long, and I am very excited to see how that is going to unfold in the preseason. I like Gray, but I also want to see Tracy get some snaps. I think his upside is something that this running back room just simply does not have right now. New offensive line coach Carmen Bricillo spoke about Evan Neal, his progression, how he's looking. And I thought this quote stuck out to me. He said, "The offensive line is a developmental position. Don't judge a player when they're young, and you don't judge a player when they're injured." And that's been Evan Neal his entire career. He's been young and he's been injured, and he's playing a developmental position. Evan Neal is the biggest swing piece, in my opinion, on this roster. If he plays like the guy that he's supposed to, when you drafted him number 7 overall, this offense could be pretty decent. If he struggles again, you have another hole at the right tackle position you got to fill. If Carmen Bricillo can get Evan Neal back on track, get the man a statue. Get Bricillo a statue if he can get Evan Neal back on track, because he is so far off the tracks after his first 2 years. And I don't just always want to come on here and bash and hate on Evan Neal. It's just my job to tell it like it is. And I don't even have to say it. You know what it is. He's been awful through 2 years. He has fallen very short of the bar of expectations. When you draft a guy number 7 overall at a position, you're not supposed to be looking for his replacement just 2 years later, and that might be the boat that the Giants find themselves in 8 months from now. The offensive line at OTAs looks like this so far. Andrew Thomas at left tackle, Jermaine Illuminor at left guard, John Michael Schmitz at center, John Runyon at right guard, and Evan Neal at right tackle. We had thought for a while that it was going to be Runyon at left guard and Illuminor at right tackle. Runyon says he prefers left guard. But I think with the Giants putting Runyon at right guard, that signals one thing. They want their best interior offensive lineman helping out Evan Neal. That tells me they're still not all that confident in him. But I like the move, and I understand it. And if you get a vet that's been there and done that and produced at a pretty high level in this league like Runyon, where Neal can depend on him, hopefully that helps him become more of a playable player in this league. We got more OTA stuff to talk about, but I want to do an OTA winners and losers video. Giants have had 5 practices. They only got 10. We're at the halfway point. I will do the video this weekend if this video gets to 500 likes. If you want an OTA winners and losers video, hit that thumbs up icon right now. Coming up next, Deonte Banks continues to shine at practice, and an undrafted free agent made a big-time play today, and he's competing to make this roster and extend his career as a National Football Leaguer. Though, you should be getting a Brian Burns jersey right now. Go to chatsports.com/Burns, chatsports.com/Burns, and get a brand new New York Giants Brian Burns jersey. If you want to wear number 0 and support the $150 million pass rusher for Week 1 against the Minnesota Vikings, get your jersey today. Chatsports.com/Burns. That's chatsports.com/Burns. All righty, let's sprint through some takeaways that we had from Day 5. Deonte Banks, once again, looking good, and we've said it a million times. He needs to be a CB1 this year, and he looked like it today. You're going to watch this video on Friday. We filmed it Thursday afternoon. Banks broke up a TD, and he's looked good again at OTAs. Nick McLeod and Dane Belton also had pass breakups. So the secondary coming along, making some plays, and that's what you want to see. McLeod may be your starting slot corner, maybe that star position, playing a little bit of slot and safety. We know he's a special team specialist. I'm all in on Dane Belton. I know you drafted Tyler Newbert in round 2. I've always been a fan of Belton. He's always around the football. And I think that speaks volumes to a player's IQ. It's not just coincidence that he is a turnover-creating machine. He's at the right place at the right time for a reason. That comes down to IQ and the way he sees the field. I'm expecting big things from Belton this year if he gets the opportunity to prove it to himself and this ball club. Daniel Jones also reportedly looked good in 7-on-7, and that's what you want to hear. I saw one play on Twitter where it took him 7 seconds, and I'm going to give the credit to the defense on that. You can't throw it to anywhere that's not open, and nobody was open. He had to check it down. It would have been a sack. Not too upset with Daniel Jones for that. But Connor Hughes said this: I get that it's OTAs, but based off what I've seen, I'd be floored if Daniel Jones isn't the runaway QB1. Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito are no real push to be QB1. And that's what you want to hear. That's what you want to hear. You want to hear that your starting quarterback is outplaying the guys that are trying to take his job. Let's hope it translates to Sundays. Jones had completions to Wan'Dale Robinson, Allen Robinson, Ayir Asante, and Darius Slayton in 7-on-7s. He's only participating in that part of practice in a team setting, not yet ready with the knee to go full-on 11-on-11, despite it not being full contact. Ayir Asante, the UDFA, had a big-time play at practice today. He was one of my favorite UDFAs coming into the Giants. Comes from Wyoming. Drew Lock found the UDFA in stride in the end zone for a long score during 11-on-11s, and that's the type of production that he can do. He is a guy that has a knack for creating big-time plays. He can make people miss when he's got the ball in his hands. I like him. I think he's got a shot to crack this roster if he shines in preseason, but it's already a loaded depth chart. I'm not sure how many more spots are going to be open. I'd love to keep him on the practice squad, and I think he's got kick returner, punt returner potential down the line in his career, especially with the kick return really returning to the NFL and being a factor in game days. You know, Nabers, Slayton, Hyatt, and Robinson are going to make this team. If I had to guess, I would say the Giants keep 6 wide receivers. I think it's going to be a battle between Hodgins and Robinson for that wide receiver 5 spot. I think the punt return specialist will be number 6. Could that be Olszewski? Could that be McKenzie? Or could we maybe see one of the UDFAs like Giles or Asante? Both those guys I thought have looked good so far and are talented players. Receivers a loaded position in this league. And the Giants finally got a good receiving core. Hopefully, if Nabers can be the guy that we all think he can be. Drew Lock, once again, getting mentioned on today's show. Was told he didn't look that good, but I saw that he had a nice connection with the rookie running back, Tyrone Tracy. I'm going to continue to beat the drum. Tyrone Tracy is going to be a good player in this league, man. I don't know what his ceiling is, but I know he's going to be productive, and he brings something to this running back room that they do not have, the wide receiver skill set. Excited to see what he does in the pass game this year. Supposedly, Kayvon Thibodeaux and Azeez Ojulari also looked really good. They combined each for a couple of sacks through practice on Thursday, and that's the position group that's going to have to carry this team. Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeaux, and Azeez Ojulari. Those 4 guys I want to see combined for 40 sacks this year. They all have the potential, even Azeez Ojulari, to get 10-plus sacks. Yeah, I'm still in on Ojulari. Injuries concern me a little bit, but he's got just the repertoire and the moves and the size and the speed and the skill set to be great. And I think this first pass rusher off the bench role, that third rotational edge guy, is going to suit him a little bit better because the durability has been a question. And with less workload, he could stay more healthy and he could still produce, as he does have a pretty high career pass rush win rate for the now 4th-year player coming out of Georgia. Yeah, 4th-year player because he was 1 year before Kayvon Thibodeaux, 1 year before Kayvon Thibodeaux. That's all we got for today's show. Appreciate you stopping by. If you haven't yet, hit me up on social media. I'm on Twitter. I'm on IG @MarshallGreen_. Let's go Big Blue.